Top story is this: defendant Donald Trump taking the stand in a courtroom today, speaking under oath in front of the jury that will decide the damages he owes writer E. Jean Carroll after Trump lost to her in this previous case about defamation regarding sexual assault. Now, Donald Trump's trip to court is a stark turn from his recent victory in New Hampshire. That was just Tuesday. And this is not how any candidate in any party in any point in history has ever wanted to follow up on a primary win, let alone try to build momentum while under oath regarding such serious allegations and defamation. Now, Trump's time on the stand was deliberately brief. He answered a single question from his lawyer. The judge overseed what would be allowed. The lawyer asked if Trump stood by the past deposition that he gave, which denied the underlying sexual assault that is the issue in the defamation, and Trump replied simply, 100% yes. The lawyer tried to then bulldoze on and get Donald Trump to say more about denying the actual allegations, and the judge intervened and struck those answers from the record. And that, very briefly, shows how court is different than other forums. Trump and his allies cost Fox over $700 million for defamation, which is the issue here today. But he was back live on Fox for a recent town hall where he can quite literally say anything in real time. In court, though, there are rules and limits. Shouting into a mic is actually irrelevant as far as the court process is concerned because, as I just mentioned, words can be struck from the record, evaporated. They become meaningless memories only of the participant and not relevant to the judge or jury. Because a jury considers only the admitted evidence, then it is only the evidence that counts. Bluster does not. And as you see on your screen, the process has already dealt Trump losses partly for that reason. $5 million in penalties already and counting. Now, with that in mind, I will show you just a bit more of what Donald Trump tried and failed to get into the evidence today. So we in the public realm and journalists can actually track this, even though, again, it does not matter to the jury. He was unsuccessful in this effort, but he got his lawyer to toss in another question about asking if he had ever instructed anyone to hurt Carroll, and he then denied that. And as you see, judge strikes from record. It was struck. Doesn't matter. Failed. Carroll's attorney did have a chance to briefly also cross-examine defendant Trump, also on narrow grounds, confirming simply that this is the first trial they attended together. We know from the process this jury could deliver its verdict as early as tomorrow. The underlying allegations here and the underlying alleged incident, which now is the product of defamation, meaning the court system found Carroll to be truthful and defendant Trump to not be truthful, that is very important, significant. It's something voters can weigh if they choose to as they learn about this. So very serious stuff, even if at times the court proceeding today, this process that I'm telling you about, was a little dry, a little kind of straightforward. Not a ton came out of his brief time on the stand, and we're not going to guss it up any more than what actually happened. That's what happened. He took the stand. They played some games. Their games were rebuffed, rejected, and evaporated in the courtroom. I want to bring in a former federal prosecutor who knows these courtrooms well, Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney. Welcome.
Good to be with you.
As I mentioned, some of the underlying incident and stakes are higher than what happened today, although most presidential candidates aren't in a courtroom in the first place regarding such serious matters. Your thoughts on what is important here and the failed attempts by Trump's lawyer to kind of season or add to what was supposed to be a very narrow purpose proceeding under the judge's orders.
Yeah, I mean, this was fascinating, Ari. The former president taking the witness stand and testifying. There had been a lot of speculation. Would he or wouldn't he? At the end, it was clear that Donald Trump took the witness stand because Donald Trump wanted to testify. I think a more experienced lawyer with better client control would have talked him out of doing it. And ultimately, he scored no points with the jury. If anything, some of his misbehavior in the courtroom may be something that they hold against him.
Let's get into that, because that is the sort of why we have the court sketches. They don't allow video and cameras in there, but this is a jury making the decision. And so, again, in fairness, he has a deposition. He has the right to answer those questions he already had. So that sort of exists, those denials.
Yeah.
For a jury, seeing him sort of be this, I want to say, undisciplined or potentially disrespectful to the rules and the judge, that does what to their review?
You know, juries are human beings. Now, the judge will instruct them very carefully because trial judges don't like to get reversed on appeal. So he'll talk with them about what they can and can't consider. And some of Trump's more, I would say, flagrant behavior occurred outside of the presence of the jury when legal arguments were being made. But nonetheless, they can look at him, they can, check his demeanor, and that will undoubtedly influence their consideration when they get to damages.
Yeah. We mentioned the underlying depositions and that process that led to this civil case. And we have some of that. And some of this sound, I want to be clear, was played for the jury's benefit for their process in the courtroom today. So whether one finds it negative for the defendant or not, you say, well, why am I looking at this? Or he looks terrible. Well, that's part of why, in this case, it was actually presented to the jury. We'll show some of that.
I have no idea who she was, and nor could I care less.
You meant that she was not your type physically, right?
I saw her in a picture. I didn't know what she looked like. And I said it, and I say it with as much respect as I can, but she is not my type.
You have in front of you a black and white photograph.
That's Marla, yeah. That's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here.
Carol.
Oh,
The person you just pointed to was
I
E.
see.
Jean Carroll.
This case is about damages. And yes, there are compensatory damages. Is the amount of money it'll take to repair E. Jean Carroll's reputation. But really, this case is about punitive damages. And when Robbie Kaplan, who is E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, closes and talks with the jury, she will make the point with them that it's in their power to impose damages in an amount that will make Donald Trump stop what the jury was able to see in these videotapes. Stop defaming her, stop making her life difficult. And she will ask them to do that. The videotape is pretty persuasive.
He's in New York, and we have reporting here from NBC that, in addition to the brief testimony, his lawyers in the even more serious New York case, the criminal case, they were in the courthouse today. They had lunch with Trump's attorneys. They're all, of course, entitled to prepare and coordinate as they see fit. The D.C. Jack Smith case is currently paused on appeal. Supreme Court could make that take longer even. We'll see. The hush money case would be the next criminal case up. Is it possible that that case, which has been seen as smaller in some ways, ends up being the first criminal trial of the president?
At this point, I think it's really likely. And I'm bullish on this case, Ari, for this reason. I think it's an election fraud case. It's about a presidential candidate who tried to conceal important information from voters on the eve of an election and violated New York state law, committed fraud. This is a sort of fraudulent behavior that office prosecutes persistently, this making of false statements. I think this case will try better than it has been reported in the press.